Hello, this is Mark here at Garrett's Guitars, and I'm here to talk about guitars and peak guitar. When are we going to have enough guitars in this world? Um, this is someone left a comment on a different discussion, and it got me thinking about this concept because it's something I wonder about here owning a guitar store. When are there ever enough guitars? When are guitar sales going to fall instead of rise and all that stuff? Now, it's very complicated, and I'm only going to touch on a few things today. But also, oh yeah, because this is YouTube, there's going to be a lot of hearsay and opinions and dubious facts, and so uh, it's just part of the game here. Uh, so I'm going to start with some hearsay, which is my friend Chris Pern told me years ago that someone had added up all the production of Martin, Gibson, Kay, Harmony, um, all the major American guitar makers, added up the production and figured out there was something somewhere between 60 and 80 million guitars in America. That is essentially one for every four Americans at the time. Um, and the idea, also this idea of peak guitars, like when is there ever enough? Um, and so, if that is true, since then there must have been as many guitars made and put into the market. So let's divide this up into two categories: vintage guitars and new production. And vintage and used, desirable used guitars, new production. So in America, back like I was saying, in that time when there were 80 million guitars, one for every one in four Americans could own an American-made guitar. There wasn't a lot of demand, and that's how your dad bought a Fender Telecaster for $100 in a pawn shop in 1976. That is now worth $10,000 or something. It's because there were plenty of these things around. There were no market forces to drive the prices up. But when we talk about the classic American guitars, now there's a worldwide demand for them. So there's 7 billion people who want Fender, Gibson, Martin, and so on. And so these guitars have become very valuable. The values are shooting up, and let me tell you, they're just going to keep going up. Because I've analyzed this in other markets, non-guitar instrument markets. Just when you think we've hit the ceiling, it's like, oh my God, how can a Strat be worth 10 grand? It will just keep going up. Because there's a growing worldwide demand for these instruments. There are collectors in China, and we used to remember in the 80s, there was Japanese collectors are buying up all the guitars. Well, Japanese collectors are nothing compared to Chinese collectors, and Indian collectors, and Russian collectors, and Italian collectors. These instruments are unique and beautiful, and everyone wants them. So they're kind of out of the picture. That kind of the whatever still exists from that 60 to 80 million American-made guitars, pale in comparison to the worldwide demand. So let's talk about new production. Guitars are cheaper than ever. You can get a really good guitar for $100. You can get a great guitar for $300. So they're all over the place. When is that ever going to be enough? Well, there's a factor going on here. When you're in certain price points, certain things become more desirable. For example, when let me think of a good example. Let's talk about a laptop computer. There was a time when all notebook laptop computers cost $3 grand. This was back in the 80s, right? You had to have a lot of money to get one. Only certain people had them. Then they got to a price point, and there were a bunch of them in the market and people making them. Then they got to a price point where they got it down to $1,000, and then the market widened, and even more people wanted them. And so, despite the fact that there are already a lot out there, the demand increased. And now they're in a realm where you can get one for a couple $100 to, and you can get a good one if you buy like a Chromebook or something, $200. Those things are fantastic. And it widens the market even more. So rather than satiating the need for these things, it creates more need. Because, like, $200, I'll buy one, sure. I own 2 Chromebooks. Why do I have 2 Chromebooks? Because they're great. Because, I won't get into it. You own a lot of guitars. Why do you own a lot of guitars? Because they're so fun. They're magical. And so when you see that cool Squire, you're like, oh man, this is a good playing Squire. I gotta have this, you know. If I maybe put some pickups in it and or just play it like it is or whatever. I never had a telly. I want a telly. This is a telly. I mean, you talk yourself into it, and it's completely natural because you're just part of a market force of when the price comes down on things, demand increases rather than decreasing. Even though it seems like there's a whole other demand. That's why companies like Martin and Taylor are now doing those Mexican production guitars that street price for under $1,000 because that puts them into a whole new market. That's why Fender makes Fender copies. They make guitars in Indonesia called Squires that are much cheaper versions of the expensive thing they also want to sell to you because they know that's a huge market and they want to be in it. So the lower the price goes, the higher the demand raises, and this happens in fashion too. And although I'm not one to speak about fashion, obviously, but just remember when I was a kid, whatever textile stores there were, Sears or something, they're now all stores sell clothing, and the clothing costs nothing, and yet they're the busiest stores around. So when we talk about peak guitar, I don't think we've reached it because even though prices have come down, production has gone up, interest has risen because it becomes a more encompassing thing. And then we have guitar like, we have ukuleles and basses. The electric bass is still in most music, even though the guitar solo is dead. And the electric bass is still in electronic music and rap music. You can hear electric bass. There's a unique voice to that. There's a little bass renaissance going on with people really getting interest in playing bass. The ukulele is a great instrument. It's symbiotic to the guitar. It can lead to guitar playing, or it can be a simpler way to not be involved in guitar playing, but still be involved in something like it and with the same kind of magic associated with it. So I'm going to leave it there for now. Maybe we'll talk more about this. So my opinion part is peak guitar has not been reached. I don't even know if we'll ever reach it. Have we ever reached peak shirt? Have we ever reached peak cell phone? No. They continue to sell and sell, and there's an innovation curve in some of the technology stuff, but the principles are the same. So I'll leave it at that for now. Thanks for watching.